It's a long walk. Fun fact about the road to Machu Picchu. To get there by train from Cusco is about 3 or 4 hours. If you want to hike the Inca Trail in, it takes give or take 3 or 4 days. And if you want to drive from Canada, it's roughly 13,000 kilometers. I decided to drive. This is a story of the motorcycle adventure to Machu Picchu. In 2016, I decided to ride my bike from here to Machu Picchu. In all, I went straight through to Argentina. But along the way, on the way to Machu Picchu, the trip nearly came to an end. I spent Christmas Day that year at a hostel in Lima, Peru, with a colorful bunch of other overlanders who were crisscrossing the world in their own special way. We sat down to a buffet dinner made from available ingredients in the country, such as potatoes. For those of you who don't know, Peru has over 4,000 varieties of potatoes. 4,000. There's black ones, there's brown ones, there's round ones, there's long ones. And today on the menu, we were eating these long, bright pink potatoes, which I'd never seen before. They actually weren't that great. Christmas cocktails were aplenty, and one lady at our table had a few too many of the national drink, the pisco sour. At one point, she decided to turn around and head back to her trailer to mix another drink. She made her way back, and returned a short while later with a full drink, but only half an outfit. She completely forgot to put her pants back on. Lucky for the rest of the table, she remembered her panties, but that was it. Upon walking back to the table and looking at everyone's faces, she realized the mistake and had turned around for a full moon departure, at which point everyone turned and looked at her boyfriend, who was giving one of these looks as if to say, "Oh my God." And not one person said a single word about it when she returned a short while later. The next day, my now wife arrived on a plane from Canada, and we set off the final 12,000 kilometers into Machu Picchu. And for those of you who have never been, it's an incredible ride that takes you up over some huge passes, down some beautiful valleys, and around some spectacular views like nothing I've ever seen before. On one such pass, we were headed up around 15,000 feet to get over a mountain. About halfway up, we hit a really bad blizzard. So bad that ice began to form over the front of the windshield, and just to see where we were going, I had to open the front of my helmet to see just a few feet in front of us. Getting to the top required passing a number of slow-moving trucks that were creeping their way to the top. Passing them was a bit of a mix of avoiding the splashy spray off the side of their truck wheels and looking into the oncoming fog, hoping there was no other traffic coming. As we inched our way to the top, I could feel Angie's helmet slowly bump against the back of mine. I wasn't sure why, but I didn't have much time to think about it and continued on, too cold to concern myself. When we finally reached the top, I was amazed to see that people actually lived up here. And we stopped at the first house we saw, ran inside, and it was a sort of a mud hut that sold cookies and crackers. They looked at us in our frozen motorcycle gear like we were from another planet, and it actually kind of felt that way. It wasn't warm inside, but it was at least dry. It was in here in sort of a docile, hazy state that I finally realized what was going on. Down at sea level, you breathe roughly 21% oxygen. And up at around 15,000 feet, the oxygen level drops to about 11%, or about half what we were used to breathing. What had been happening is Angie had been passing out on the back of the bike, and every time she would hit my helmet, she would wake back up. It was here I realized that we needed to get back down really fast. Soon enough, we were headed back down to more dry and oxygen-filled climates. We eventually stopped to refuel the bike, as well as ourselves, and pressed on. But the day was far from over. As we were winding along one of those beautiful, spectacular mountain passes, the road was dry, the weather was pretty good, but just like that, the bike dropped like a three-legged table, hit the pavement, and started spinning down the middle of the highway. Angie came ejected from the back seat and landed on the middle of the road. I held on for a short while longer before I became ejected in the other lane of oncoming traffic. I looked over, and as I was skidding across the pavement, I could see the bike slowly spinning towards the inside of the mountain. It was lit up in a waterfall of sparks before it eventually hit the side of the mountain and landed tires up in the ditch with fuel leaking out over the fairing. It was all over. I was horribly disappointed. I turned around, looked at Angie, who had picked herself up off the pavement, while I was doing the same, and both of us sort of brushed ourselves off, and to both of our amazement, we were basically unharmed. We reached over, hugged each other, looked over at the bike, and I knew she was fine, but the trip definitely wasn't. It was at this point, a young couple came around the corner, got out of their car, offered us some help, and the four of us hauled the bike upside down out of the ditch back on 2 wheels. At which point I realized that the crash bars on the bike, which were put there for a reason, as well as the luggage had taken most of the impact. For the most part, aside from some heavily bent handlebars, the bike was entirely intact. I couldn't believe it. Maybe the trip was saved. I reached over, put the bike back in neutral, turned the key, and with a little bit of a chug, the bike fired back up. I couldn't believe it. Now, God isn't usually my go-to guy for too many things. But at this moment, along the trip, I've been blessed by so many people, as well as the bike, in so many different countries that I wasn't really too sure who I should thank. I just looked up, thanked whoever might be listening at the time, and with a new outlook on life and some heavily bent handlebars, we made our way the rest of the way into Machu Picchu. Now, you can't actually drive all the way to Machu Picchu. We stopped in a town close by called 𝗔𝗯ance, parked the bike, and from there you have to walk a full day in along the railroad tracks. And in our luck, it was in the rain. Eventually, at the end of the day, we arrived to the town of Machu Picchu, hiked up to the top, and there was the most incredible city I have ever seen in my entire life, Machu Picchu. To get there from Cusco, it takes about 3 or 4 hours. If you want to hike the Inca Trail in, it's about 3 to 4 days. And if you want to drive from Canada, it's give or take 13,000 kilometers. Now, I'm not going to recommend that you drive the whole way there, but however you get there, Eric, I suggest you get there. Mr. Toastmaster.